Hello, everyone, and welcome to Data Empowerment in Business and Your Career. Thank you so much for joining us. My name is Kelly Outwater, and I'm the Vice President of Marketing at Hudson Valley Credit Union. I'm moderating today's webinar, which is the first of 3 Women in Business sessions brought to you by Hudson Valley Credit Union. Our next Women in Business webinar will take place on Thursday, September 22nd at 11:30 a.m. It focuses on what it takes to form and build solid partnerships. Libby Gill is our keynote speaker on managing through volatility, which will be held on Thursday, September 29th at 11:30 a.m. If you haven't already registered, please visit hvcu.org/2022-WIB. These events are free to attend, but you do need to register. Also, you gave feedback and we listened. After 2 years of virtual events, we've created space for you to learn more about your fellow registrants. Get listed on our 2022 Women in Business networking page and get access to fellow business owners and women in the workforce who you might be interested in connecting with. We'll drop a link in the chat. Now, before I introduce the panelists, I want to cover a few housekeeping items. We'll leave some time at the end to answer questions. Use the chat button feature at the bottom of your screen to ask a question or make a comment. We're recording today's session and we'll email you a link if you missed part of it or would like to watch it on demand. Back to today's discussion, where we're going to focus on data, which is considered the new oil that can enable all businesses, both large and small, to gain competitive advantages in their markets. Today's panel will explore how data analytics is empowering both businesses and the people who work in them. I hope you come away from today's webinar with some new ways on how you can be part of the data revolution. We have 2 great speakers today, Angela Girardin and Jennifer Seaman. I'd like to give them each a moment to tell you a little bit about themselves. Jen, if you could please start.
Hi, good morning, everyone, and thank you, Kelly and Ashley, for including me. And Angela, nice to see you again. I work at a full-service creative agency, a media agency. I run the media team, and we are driven to find and tell our clients how they're being successful from start to finish. We want them to understand that their investment is of value, and if it's not, we're going to fix it. We do this on a local level. We do it also on a national level, but that's our strength and core set.
Great, thank you. And Angela?
I am an SVP of Audience Intelligence at Nielsen. I've been at Nielsen for about 10 years now. I started in our analytics team, so I'm currently still on the analytics team, using data to inform all of our clients' decisions and helping them find insights and opportunities on how to better manage their media dollars and reach the appropriate audience. So.
Great. And Angela, I'd like to start with the first question to you on just what is big data?
It's a good question. I ask myself that all the time. What is big data? If you Google big data, it will tell you that it represents a data set that's so large that it can't be ingested by traditional tools. But to an everyday person, that doesn't really mean much. There's a lot of other language out there about the 3 V's. So volume, velocity, and variety are the 3 V's that are usually used when describing big data. Volume is based off of the overwhelming scale of data, how much data there is, and the depth of it. Velocity is how quickly you can get it. Generally or historically, being able to access data, let alone small pieces of data, always had longer timelines based off of how the world has evolved with both capturing data and then mining it and detailing it has become much quicker. And then there's variety, right? You can get data from just about anywhere. So the variety of it is that it should provide you an overwhelming wealth of information that can provide you a lot of granularity. But in truth, I think big data for an everyday consumer or business owner can be broken down into 2 different types of data. There's settings data, which is just strictly like data that you can attribute to an individual person, name, address, zip code, male, female, household income, like details that are very specific. It can be transaction data. So your credit card data is connected to you. Like, what are you buying? Where are you buying it? How much are you spending? How often are you spending? It could be healthcare information, right? It could be you had a prescription for a migraine medicine. Did you fill that script? How often are you filling that script? Did you change that script? Like the amount of information is there. And that's like just two categories. If you look at geolocation data, if you just look at the people that like the systems that you use every day, Uber knows that I was in Newark. It knows that I was in San Diego. It has my location. It knows where I went. It knows that my kids ordered dinner last night. And they know what they ordered. It has all of this information. If you look at what Amazon has, like it's tremendous. That's all like settings data because they can attribute all of those pieces of information to one particular person, right? And then you have unstructured data, which is, think of like Twitter, like you have all of these people and then they're sending information or sharing information. Those are like digital footprints or digital pieces of data that they can't actually attribute what that is and what it represents. And does it actually belong to that person or are they sharing it? So that's like unstructured data. But when you think about all of that data together, it can all be combined. It can be used independently, it can be used together, and it just creates this wealth of information. And I think for the audience here, it's not, the question should be, do you need it, right? Like big data is a huge buzzword. It's very exciting, right?
Yeah.
Nielsen uses big data, right? We use it in addition to our panel, but big data has gaps, right? It has biases, it has inefficiencies. Nielsen uses it to give us that scale, the 3 Vs, but we also use our panel to calibrate it to make sure that we're looking at real things. But I would tell this audience, no matter what industry you're in or what your questions are, you shouldn't think about what is big data. What you should be asking yourself is what is the right data and what data do I
Good
need?
point. I just want to jump in here too and get Jen's feedback because I know you work with data a lot as well, maybe a little differently than how Angela uses it. Based on your experience, how do you think data analytics can improve business decisions?
Well, I feel like it's going to sound like Angela and I prep for weeks because from that, the next step is to ask yourself, because there is too much data. And if you're going to spend all your time looking at data, you're not going to move your business forward and you're going to spin your wheels and you're going to hate data. What our first question to you and the first question you're going to tell us is, what are you trying to figure out? And what's your business goal? If it's sales, it's sales. And then we work from there. Is it, I really want more followers on LinkedIn because that's a very different goal. Is it, I just want to drive more site traffic because I know my content's so good, it's going to start converting? Or is it, nobody knows who we are, we can't even get sales, we need to start with, I don't know. And the answer is awareness. So each of those questions, your number one first question is, what am I trying to do? What's my big goal? And from that, everything comes off of that, your strategy, your decisions, and then the focus for your data. Because if you look at all the data, you're going to go crazy. But if you're looking at reach, now we can start looking. Let's look at what you have, and then we can expand upon it. And that's how you save the money, and that's how you capitalize. And that's really where we start. So
yeah, if I could jump on that too. I think when you look at data and analytics, it really provides you a foundation for in a data-driven decision-making way, right? You're no longer just going with your gut and what I think is right, because in reality, their people are different, right? And consumers are different, right? You have, once you have access to the right data and exactly what Jennifer said, right? Like once you have the data and you know what you're trying to solve for, you can actually look at that data and see a much bigger picture, right? Identify your opportunities, identify your risks, like drill down into each of those and identify, why wasn't it working? Can it work differently? What do I need to change? And I know like right now, well, not right now, I guess for the last several years, we've been like a now society. I think it's important for the audience to understand that when you're making decisions with data, you're using historic data to inform future decisions, right? That doesn't mean those decisions are going to institute change today, right? You need to give it time. You need to be comfortable being uncomfortable and let that data impact your decisions, and then take that data and inform future decisions and future decisions, right? Data really allows you in the right way to create a better relationship with your consumers, right? You can't do that strategy that Jen was talking about to make sure you're reaching the right people without an understanding of the data that you have available to you.
So if you're working, if you own a business and you're just starting right now a journey on where do I go next with data, both for Jen and Angela, if you could kind of give the audience some insights. Where do you start in looking at data that helps you create actionable insights for the next 6 months?
Oh, you're such a sly. That's all the way down at the end of the list we talked about. You're shifting it around. I actually love this one because really you want to know what can I do now to impact my business? And the first thing is, what is your website? How is that working hard for you? The website is your greatest source of information, and making sure it is hooked with all the Google products, the Google Analytics, the Google Search, the Google My Business, which will run a report for you and tell you what you need to work on. That is the fastest way you audit yourself. We'll share the link. It will tell you right away, hey, if you put your map link here, you're going to improve your site traffic ranking. So understanding how Google works, Google rewards you for every time you do something that's truthful. They want you to give the consumer truth, give your clients the truth. And you have a great site, you're telling the truth. It may want you to pop some things out and call them out. And then everything you drive to that, as long as it matches, they really want to reward you for matching good data to good data and accuracy. So that helps your organic traffic. And that is, I would say, the number one starting place. Look at your site. We'll give you the links. You can run an audit and make sure it's performing to the best that it is already. Understand what you have.
Great, thank you. Angela, anything you'd like to add to that?
No, I mean, I think it goes back to one of my comments earlier, like you have to get comfortable being uncomfortable and accept change, right? The way that we used to operate is very different than the way that we operate now. And I would leverage those types of opportunities like Google, Facebook analytics, any of those analytics, which you may go in and just be like, oh, this is a lot, right? It's too much. I don't even know where to begin, but dedicate the time, right? Dedicate the time that you need to understand what you're looking at, so that every dollar that you put forward has a positive return for you, even if it's just your own knowledge of how it works, right? No one has succeeded in life without failure, right? So do it, test it, move on. Do it, test it, move on. Learn from it and change it and adapt to it. But leverage the data that's available to you through some of these sites that want your money. They want you to spend with them, but they also want you to do it well so that you spend more with them, and they'll teach you. There's a lot of low cost to no cost opportunities for learning to do some of this stuff.
And I do want to circle back to that in a moment, because Jennifer does have some tools that she can share with the audience in a few minutes. Before we get to just that, I just want to switch topics for the moment. Because a lot of data analytics and audience tracking, also, you can't talk about those things with bringing in other discussions on things like third-party cookies. So I'd like to just touch on that first. And I'll start with Angela. If you could kind of bring us up to speed, if we're really just starting out, what the heck is a third-party cookie and how is it relevant to me as a business owner?
So Nielsen has cookies, right? So a third-party cookie is basically a tag or like some way of tracking you on somebody else's site. So the biggest release in the market when Google was like, we're no longer accepting third-party cookies. And so that's like when you're searching on Google and you're looking for boho dresses, and then suddenly on Facebook, you're getting served an ad for boho dresses, right? Or my husband says in the background on my phone, like, hey, I really like the ad that you saw. I really like those golf clubs, right? And then suddenly on your web browser, you're getting served all of these golf clubs. those are kind of like the cookies that exist, right? They're ways to track you as an individual through your mobile ID or your IP address from your computer. So it was a really big issue for the industry who uses digital targeting or retargeting, because Google was like, we're not accepting third-party cookies. But so I'm at an ANA conference right now, and this question came up. So it's not just you guys who are asking these questions, but it was interesting because they were like, we'll stop accepting third-party cookies, and they will stop in 2020 whenever, right? They keep extending the date out now, right? I think it's what it's important to know is that cookies 25 years ago didn't exist, right? Like Google, digital has changed so dramatically. The industry and how media works has changed so dramatically. What I think the audience should understand is, don't be concerned, right? No one is actually all that concerned about this, because before third-party cookies existed, nothing existed. Then something else is going to change. It's not going to like implode. The industry will make sure that something will happen. We're always evolving. So when third parties disappear, something else will take its place, whether it's identity graph solutions or MAIDs and IP-based or hashed emails. Like some form of retargeting will persist. It just may look a little bit different, in my opinion. Jen, I don't know if you have a different opinion.
No, I agree. The industry's gonna evolve. The cookies were a short-term solve that ended up staying. So like, they've outlived their purpose. It was like, oh, this will work. The IP is coming, which means it's your your television, your direct IP, it's your phone. So yes, that's how we can do the retargeting. It's also why when you watch TV and you're sitting with your mobile, we can serve an ad on your mobile for the commercial you just saw if you watched a certain amount of time for it. It's creepy, we get it, but also the mobile unit has a really high conversion rate. And we worked with Nielsen's product, Catalina, to do that really, really well. And that's for a big program when you're trying to track at grocer product, which is the hardest one to do, in my opinion. The other piece of it, though, is really ensuring we want you to capture your data. So the cookie was never supposed to be the solve. We want you all to own your data. We don't want media to own the data. I never want to pay for a contact you get twice. We want you to have your contact. We want it to sit in your list. We want that list to be active. It should be in your email campaign, not in a vendor's campaign, not in a partner's campaign. That's your contacts. We want you to cultivate, capture, and talk to them and really honor your client list. That's the end goal, I think, for everybody on the call, is start that client list now.
Yeah. And I know I'm jumping ahead, but that's the future of big data, right? It's your data. You get to own it. You get to mine it and create it. It'll take time, which is why you should probably start doing it now. But the future of big data from an advertiser's perspective should sit with the advertiser, right? Like you should be able to, Jennifer's point, you should be able to do what you need with that data and not have to pay somebody else to access it.
So going with that thought, once you are acquiring your own data, how do you go about, what are some best practices for analyzing it so that, again, it goes back to how is that actionable? Because there's no shortage of data, but what's the best case as far as being able to leverage that into greater sales or even member engagement with your customers? And I'll kick it out to whoever wants to take it first.
Jen, I was just going to say, I think it starts with your KPIs. Like, what are you trying to solve for? And I think that's like the biggest question. I think people look at data and it's very overwhelming, but getting the right data set based off of what it is that you're trying to solve for is probably the most important from my perspective. And then Jen is probably the most reasonable person to walk this through.
No, again, it's like we practice, because that was the first, that's, of course, you have to solve for your goal, but then how are you testing and learning that? And one of the easiest ways is to have a CRM system, which, I know small business, I don't want to spend more money on another expense. Your email system is the most important. HubSpot has a free trial and a free area. Most of them do. Campaign Monitor has a free one. And we love Campaign Monitor because we're a creative agency first, and it's pretty. And it's plug and play for your emails. And then, there's bigger ones that also do the same thing. But it's capturing the data, and then you start to see who responds to your emails. And that would be what makes sense. So is it a sale? Is it an offer? Is it a content? Is it a headline? And you start to understand, hey, I sent that email out 4 times. Nobody responded after the first time. You're sending too many. And again, it comes back to your offer and your KPI. Is your goal traffic to the site? Is it, a sale? Is it engagement? Is it awareness? Is it, we love you, thank you so much for your loyalty, which you need to incorporate those. So it's understanding cadence and timing, and honoring your list. Always honor it and consider yourself as part of the list. You know how you get emails. You know how you feel about them. You know when you hit unsubscribe.
Yeah, and to add to that, what works for somebody else may not work for you. So there is no one right answer. So you have to do your own trial and error and really see and make it your own. So Jen, I was so excited when you brought this up when we were talking earlier, but I'd love for you to pull up some examples, some visual examples that you can share with some fun tools if you're just getting started, or even if you're a little familiar, some ways you can kind of up your game when it comes to data.
So you're seeing my brain on the page. Hold on.
Oh my God.
Oh my goodness.
So that was unexpected. I lost.
I almost had an anxiety attack.
Because of all that. Yeah.
There's a lot of big data on your screen right now, Jen.
Yeah. I thought I had went to a clean screen. Oh my goodness gracious. That was. All right.
That's okay. We'll give you a minute. But one of the things Jen is going to do is she's going to pull up a business under some different tools. So we can kind of get an idea. If you own that business, here's what some of your own metrics were and what would be relevant to gauge your performance.
So, and it's looking at the competitors, and thank you for your patience, everyone. So Google Chrome, if you're working within Google, has a lot of apps that you can add right to your Chrome bar, and then you can check your competitive set. So we have creative for Moat. And if I put in Marriott hotels, just because I saw them in the news recently, this is what their current creative looks like. Now I can do something like, let's throw in Panera, because it's lunchtime. Panera, this is the current creative within here. This is a free tool. You can go on it through the web. You can add it to your toolbar. You can see your competitors in market if they're spending money. This is for paid advertising and display. It picks up what's in market and it does a scrape of the sites and gives you an overview. And I can see from this that Panera is branding with Pepsi. Who knew? One of the other things we can look at is this is called, it's a Spark, also a Chrome toolbar ad. It does a whole site content and it tells you very quickly, what are the ranking keywords? What is the estimate monthly traffic? Again, you put your competitor in here, put yourself in here. You can see really fast how your site's doing, how a competitor's site doing. It gives you that insight knowledge, and it may give you a, hey, oh, so they added near me to everything. It's a local search term. I can do that. That's an easy fix. Something like that. Oh, they're using the words restaurant near me, not just Panera near me, not just Chipotle near me. Great one. Let me see if I can get in on that keyword. It also goes down. It has a technical audit, has some backlinks, or when you ask other sites to connect with you, it's considered a link to each other. It checks your speed and relevance for analysis. So you can also look at word counts. Maybe you have a high word count, low word count. So this is just another great little tool to give you some insight. And then I have a couple others if you want. Google Trends. Google has an arsenal arsenal of tools. But Google Trends is one of my favorite. I'm just going to click on one that they offer, but you can put yourself and a competitor in, and you can see very quickly what would be trending here. Ramen outpaces all other noodles. Who knew? Something fun. Who knew? And I wish, and I'm looking, one of my tabs has gone away, which, oh, this is, and here it is. SpyFu, which this is our owner's favorite. There's SEMrush and Moz. These are SEO sites, SEO traffic scrapers, and it basically gives you an overview. It does have competitive. So you can see Panera, their monthly traffic. It has organic and paid. It's 100% organic. I find that fascinating, but I bet they do local strategies. They improve their rank, and they have rank keywords over here, lost ranks. Keywords are the top words that help your site perform better organically, and then you can pay to boost them if you have the budget. If not, just work on your organic. You don't have to do all things. Focus on your goal. And lastly, you can look down at shared keywords. And I think this is where, from your standpoint, if you have a local competitor coming in, this would be where I would check and see, hey, what do we share? What are we looking at? How are we covering each other? What am I missing? So we want to find your gaps and make sure we shore those up. And then it'll also tell your top pages. So great to look at when you're looking at your own site. Find out, are they coming in on your homepage? Or are they coming in somewhere else? Because then maybe you have a secondary page you can capture data on and add to. It might be a second entrance point. Thank you.
So I think it would be easy to get lost in here for days on end, looking at all the different data that's available. Jen, how often do you think you should be using tools like this to check out your competitors?
From our standpoint, we do it as an audit to start. We start and look, and then we build our strategy based off of what we know will work for the client. We also know that a market change would be an impetus to check, where all of a sudden you see your traffic dip. Your first line of defense is your site traffic or a change to your business. All of a sudden, your average monthly visits have changed or your sales took a dip. Well, then we're going to start to check the competitors and see what's going on and other market factors.
Great. And Angela, same question to you. How often do you think you should take a look at what the competition is doing and really analyze that?
Well, I think if you start with your data, like a backwards trend, like if you look at the historic data, it'll give you some ideas of when, like the most important times that you should look at, like when does it traditionally happen, and then identify why, right? And then you can use these sites to help identify like what did they do during that time? Is that what caused my dip? How do I offset it in the future? But I would say in some of these instances, it's not just looking historically, but really how your business works. Like, is it a daily day, like a day-to-day transaction? Is it something where your customer base changes month over month or quarter versus quarter? Or if you sign them up, is it more of an annual thing so that you have to start planning these things, more in advance so that you can understand future impact? So I think you have to look at how your business operates. But I would be looking at my data, like to Jen's point, your website traffic, all of that stuff on a day-to-day, week-to-week basis, right? To see those triggers on a higher level, and then use these sites to inform your decisions of concerns or opportunities, even if you use holidays or big tentpole events as your framework to like dig deeper into what could I be doing more of, right? The one thing that I noticed, like we showed Panera. And so from a local perspective, if I'm, a company that's looking to franchise, I think of like, a restaurant, like what is Panera offering from a messaging perspective? Like, is that why I'm losing it? Is there dollar amount? Like McDonald's always had the dollar menu or different things. Like that could be why like my traffic went down this week, or the number of customers I received went down, right? Like what are they doing from a messaging perspective that impacted my business? And is that consistent? Like, so I know if they're going to do this on a consistent basis because they've always done it on a consistent basis, I can get ahead of it, right? I can change my messaging and start getting into the market ahead of McDonald's to counteract things that they're doing.
Yeah, and one of the things I noticed when Jen was showing Mo is when you look at all the different competitor ads, you can also see what their calls of action are, which can
Mhm.
help you try to formulate what your plan is into something actionable. Are they having a pricing, a special pricing incentive? Are they asking you, are they offering free content? You can download something. How are they trying to engage people? And then you can take a look at what you're doing to say, you don't necessarily want to replicate it, but where's the opportunity lie for you to be a
Mhm.
differentiator?
Yeah, I mean, identifying what your KPI is, right? Is your goal to share, like steal market? Like, is it to steal their share, right? What are your goals? Is it to gain more, like, is it to offset your differentiation, like your differentiation between those, like your messaging has a huge part into not only the data that you're evaluating and where you're placing it, but what you're communicating to your client. But data can help inform that too, right? Like, I'm not gonna target heavy meat eaters, right, for a vegan restaurant. Like, it's very, like, your message,
Please
and
don't.
therefore your targeting like matters, but as does your messaging.
Right. So we have a question from the
Mhm.
audience that I want to pose to both Jen and Angela. How can a not-for-profit benefit from data analytics? And that's a great question. So thank you for
Mm,
sharing that.
Sure. It actually comes off of what Angela just said about your KPI, your key performance indicators. So for not-for-profit, what is your number one goal? Is it to um, get your message out that you exist in the community, or is it to secure financing and investors? So what goal are you working on there? So from then that point, the analysis, I would want to look at your audience to your site, who's coming to you. Are you getting too young of an audience? Then you may have to change your messaging to be a little older. Are you only on a platform like Facebook, which maybe is not taken as a serious investing platform, but as a social share platform and friend and family? So then I maybe want to move my message over to LinkedIn, which is more of a serious platform for investing and taking consideration and consider a different approach, again, messaging. And then you would measure that to your site and see what trend. Run the same ad on both Facebook, organic, not paid, just run organic in your feed and see how your response comes in, and then look at the audience for both and look at the engagement, how many people came through each ad, and then do it again and again.
Hey, Jennifer, can you talk about how to do partner links? Because I feel like in some of those instances with nonprofit, having, it's almost like in some instances it brings validity to a newer organization.
An affiliate.
Yeah, so like in your Google metrics, so how, like, is it something that they can do as, the partner links that you connected back to?
For the backlinks,
Yeah.
that is a content strategy, and that is a
Mhm.
great outreach. So anytime you get published or someone talks about you, you get a backlink. They've posted something on their site. Thank you for saying this, Angela. You have the right to ask them to link back to you and share the link, and you then, of course, share the link back. It's quid pro quo. It's a quick email. You find out who it is, you find the source, and you can set this up for yourself really fast by doing Google alerts of your own name. As simple as it gets. You just put in Looney Advertising, set a Google alert. I know immediately if someone's talking about us, and we can shoot them an email and say, hey, thanks for the share. Can we link to you? Appreciate the nod. Quick and easy.
Very good.
Yeah, I think the only thing I would add to this, and it's hard to justify, and I'm sure Kelly feels this all the time, right? I feel like marketing dollars are probably the first dollars to get cut in any like stretched budget, right? Like, oh, I need to cut dollars somewhere, or I just don't have enough to do it. I think you have to make a commitment to yourself and your brand to give it the opportunity to succeed. So whether it's the data or the investment, there is an investment sometimes to the advertising. And that's why you need to use data to make the best informed decisions that you can, so that the dollars that you're investing are used as best as possible, especially for small businesses and nonprofits. But you have to give it the opportunity to work and know that there is going to be an investment behind it, right? What that investment is obviously based off of your own budget and needs, but I would give it the opportunity to succeed with the knowledge that sometimes you're going to need to put dollars behind the efforts that you want.
Very good. Thank you both. Good insights. I hope that's very helpful, both to nonprofits and to anybody that's trying to gauge what their next step forwards are. So before we go into the Q&A session, I do want to make sure we take some time to cover what the future looks like for big data and how does that translate down to people that are local or regional or online businesses. Where do they go from here? Angela, I'll let you kick it off.
I feel like the future is pretty unknown. You have to think about this on a global scale, right? When we talk about big data, if you look at what's happened in Europe, and there's a lot of privacy concerns. If you look at California alone with CDPA, like there's certain things that you can and can't do with the data, right? Like it may seem arbitrary to us right now, especially to this audience, but in the future state, like there are government things like programs that are either in consideration, getting ready to be passed or evaluated in terms of what people can and can't do with data, right? And that could be your own data or third-party data. So I think the future of it is a little bit different, but I think I referenced it before. I think a lot of it is going to be ID based. I think it's your data. You collecting data gives you the right to mine it, make sure that you're legally compliant, that you're in control of what you've created, and then you get to make the decision on how you get to use it. I think that first and third party data will continue to exist. I think it'll exist a little differently in the market. And I think the way in which we get to connect to big data or use that data will change, but I think it will persist for quite a while.
Got it. Jen, anything you want to add to that?
For local, it always comes down to personalization. So being able to capture your data, own your data, so it's ownership, and it's understanding your cycles, as we said earlier, but it's also then being able to customize your communication. So really harnessing what you have and building journeys. I know you've all heard the journeys, and but you want to build them in terms of try and automate where possible, and that's where a HubSpot would come in. And it's anything that can be replicated year over year, and then you're updating copy and content and keeping what you already have. So you want to make your lives easier, right? You have a lot on your plate. You're running a business. So you want to make sure that you're talking to, hey, it's the fall sale. So we want to make sure we always have a fall sale. And then we just have to make sure we put in the percentage. And we know that, you know, Sarah, Jane, and Jack always come to our fall sale. So they're in our always come bucket. And you start to create your buckets of communication, and your headlines change to accommodate that. So then they feel personalized, they feel a part of your tribe, and you're creating tribes and communities. And once you start to do that, you can really see that 80-20 rule, where 20% usually are more involved, spend more, and then you can ask them for loyalty. And then you can start to work with them to expand and become your ambassadors. So that's the big, long goal for local, is you have that community and you want the referral as much as possible. So talk to them. Collect now.
So before we get into the Q&A session, and if you have questions, comments, please go ahead and type them in now if you haven't yet. Jen, any last advice or anything we haven't covered here today that you want to make sure the audience knows when it comes to data and your career?
Sure. The first is G4. G4 is Google Analytics. Angela referenced it earlier, where they're getting rid of one system and putting in a new system, and it's basically going to drive every marketer batty. It's starting now. So if you're just setting up your Google site and you're just setting up Google Analytics, don't even bother with UA, which is the old format. Just set up everything in G4. That's the going forward. So for those of us in the old section, the UA, we have to do a migration. There is no tool currently built. If someone builds it, we will be happy. They will make a lot of money. We have to download all of our data, all our historical data from years, 2005 is when it started, and we have to bring it into the new system. It's important for year-over-year comparisons. The first start to any business is to understand your historic, to see where you're going, and continually mine your Google Analytics. It really will give you the best insight faster than anywhere else.
Great, thank you for that.
Thank you.
Angela, same question. What would you like to share that maybe we haven't covered before? What other things should they be thinking about as we move forward from today?
I mean, I think we talked about it. There's data is a foundational piece, right? So no matter what data it is, whether it's the Google Analytics, if you're licensing data or collecting data, being able to evaluate and look at your data, spend the time with it, get comfortable with it, understand what you need, what's missing, fill in those gaps so that you have a complete picture of what it is that you would determine as a metric that would help in your success, right? My biggest thing when I was working local is it was the lack of information that was readily available. So you always felt like you were making decisions in the absence of data, right? So there's so much data out there in the world. There's a lot of big data, but there's other tangible data that can help you make strong business decisions. And get your hands on it. Use the tools that Jennifer provided, use Google Analytics, and leverage those insights to help more factual based decisions. I would just say, like, my husband's probably going to kill me. There's only so much that data will provide you, right? Like some of it from a local perspective is instinctual and community based, right? So data may inform you one way. So my husband does fantasy football, and all of the data said to go one way versus another. And he's like, and I should have just went with my gut. In some of those instances, data will get you as far as it can, but you still have to leverage or balance that with things that are happening in the market, right? Things that that are happening in the community, things that will balance out that data. It can't be done in a vacuum. Get your hands on the data, evaluate it, and then layer on some good insights from intuition.
Okay, great. Thank you, Angela. Thank you, Jennifer. I'm going to go through now, see if we have any questions. I did get one, though. Actually, I have a friend of mine who's watching, texted me a question instead of the chat box, but they want to know if there are examples of companies out there that are really a best case in leveraging data. Like I know companies like Pepsi or Starbucks are rock stars with it, but can you think of someone with a lot less in resources who are capitalizing on data in a more meaningful way?
Actually, one of our clients, I mean, all of my clients, but we have a really great example is Rowan College of Burlington County down in South Jersey. They're this big. It's a 6-county buy. And their budget is so tiny, and we have to honor their organic because it would never work. We have built a full funnel attribution model from start to finish by pixeling, which is the tech that is going to change. But anyway, we pixeled all the way through to their CRM, their email system, so that when a student registers for a class, and it goes all the way through to the application, and we get a thank you page, which is my trigger. That's called an event. We know they signed up. And then we have the team at the college prove that the model worked. They say, yes, we got a registration. And we do this weekly. So we know week over week, it is 14 applications, and then 1 week it'll be 84 applications. And we have taken their cost per acquisition from $184. And I just checked this last night because I'm like, we have driven this down. I'm looking at an annual report. We've driven it down to $59 cost per acquisition in 2 years. So that is a significant savings to the college. It means we targeted the audience correctly. We did a media mix, and we challenged the client to try new things. We said, you need to be in TikTok. We can't get the students on Facebook anymore. They're not on there. Their mothers are on there. Their dads are on there. The students are not. And they did it with great success. And they did this much. I paid TikTok. They didn't have the bandwidth to do organic. That's a lot of content. They did one video. They paid. We put it out. Gangbusters, and it increased their search by like a ridiculous amount of 19%. And everybody says it's not proven yet, it's just a lift, but I know it. I've checked the data like 3 times. It's a really strong indicator, which is the other thing with data, which we have not said. Data is messy. It's directional a lot of times, and as Angela stated, you do have to use your gut. So I know search increased when I added TikTok. I do not have a direct correlation, but I do have a savings for my client, and they can continue to invest in other opportunities.
Very good. Angela, anything? Any examples you can think of?
So we so this was a much bigger client. It was an auto association or a group. And what we did is we leveraged Nielsen Scarborough data to identify their target, right? So historically, from an auto perspective, you want to target everybody, right? But what we did was we actually looked at auto intenders. So we redefined who they were trying to reach, changed it from an age demo, so adults 25 to 54, to specifically identify auto intenders, so people who were in the market to buy a car. And so that was our first strategy, right? Let's redefine who they were trying to reach and make sure that they were reaching the right people. And then we looked at their consumption behavior, right? So those who were in the market have slightly different media consumption behaviors than adults 25 to 54. Where are they watching? What are they listening to? What sites are they visiting? Very specific to the area in Texas that we were looking at. And then what we did in addition to that was we took some competitive information. So a little different than the competitive information that Jennifer showed, but it was really like, what are the other retail, like what are the other brands? What are they advertising? How much are they advertising? Am I spending too little? Am I spending too much? Like, where should I be? And where are they over voicing me versus where am I? And then what we did, so we identified that against the auto intenders, identified areas of opportunity where they were maybe under, represented and maybe over represented. And then when we went one step further and we looked at the actual brand. So in this instance, it was Toyota. Like, you have a tier 1 advertiser who's already advertising in 3 of these different places that we've identified that are already overrepresented. Let's take your local dollars and focus on the areas that you're underrepresented and more focused on that audience so that the dollars went further and were more targeted. So it's just using data in a little bit different way for them.
Excellent. Very good. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
It looks like we have no additional questions. So with that, I want to thank everyone for joining us today. Thank you to Jennifer and Angela for providing us with such good insights. I hope to see you all at our next Women in Business session, a Lash in Partnership, on Thursday, September 22nd at 11:30, and Managing Through Volatility on Thursday, September 29th at 11:30. Remember, registration is at hvcu.org. Have a great rest of your day, everyone. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Nice to see you.